Hi guys, welcome back to the JavaScript video series. This is the 20th video in the series, and today we'll be taking a look at looping over JavaScript arrays. Now in the last video we have seen how arrays work and some of the issues that may come up when working with arrays, and today I just want to show you the most important two for loops that you will use to loop over arrays. So one is the regular standard for loop and the other is the forEach loop. Now there are two more for loops that we'll look at a little later on in the series, when we'll be taking a look at loops in general, and those will be for in and for off loops. But right now, since we are on the topic of arrays, I just want to cover these two for loops so that you have some working knowledge of these, at least to begin with. If you're liking this series, then don't forget to subscribe. If you have any issues with any of the videos, don't forget to comment and I'll get back to you with some kind of solution. So go ahead and open up your JS Fiddle window, and we'll be writing some code in the JavaScript tab. Now let me define an array. So you know how to define an array, right? So this is I'm defining an array called ages, and I'll say 10, 20, 30 and 40. So I'm taking 4 different ages. As you remember, this is 0, index number 0, index number 1, index number 2, index number 3, right? There are 4 values, but there are starting from 0, there are index values till 3 we have, right? So if I want to go over or loop over this array, by looping over this array, I mean that I want to access each of these values and then perform some function on it, right? So this is how you write a for loop in JavaScript. So I say for, and I create these two round brackets, and then I put these two curly braces, and inside the curly braces I'll write what I want to do with each of these values, right? So I'll say document.write, and I'm going to say something here. I'll show you what I write here, okay, in a minute. So inside this for loop, I have to take a value called I, and the I value needs to start at 0. Why? Because this index number is 0, right? So I want to start at the first value, which has an index number of 0, right? And I want this to run till the end of this array, which is the value 40, right? Now it can run till 3. That means the index number 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So I'll say less than 4. I'm not saying equal to or less than or equal to 4. I'm saying less than 4, which is basically till this value 0, 1, 2, 3. It won't go till 4. It will always stay less than 4. I hope that makes sense. Now another semicolon, and I'll say I plus plus, because I wanted to run for 0, then I wanted to run for 1, and then every single time it runs, I wanted this to increment by 1 so that it can go over till the point where it reaches the value of 3, right? And here document.write, I'm going to say ages, and in the square braces I'm going to say I. Basically, whatever the value of I, it could be 0 in the beginning, then it'll enable me to access the value of 10, okay? Then it'll be 1, then it'll enable me to access the value of 20, then 30, then 40, right? That's how it's going to loop the whole thing. Now let's run it and see. We'll see 10, 20, 30 and 40. We are seeing all the 4 values, right? Now we can perform some operation on any of these values. This is basically the use case, because you would ideally want to loop over arrays and then perform some operations on them. That is why you basically loop over arrays. So so you just say plus, and then you say 1, because I want to add 1 to each of these values. So I get 11, 21, 31 and 41. I hope that makes sense. Now let me show you how forEach works, because you may have worked with these kind of for loops if you are coming from another programming language, but forEach is something that is not there in a lot of programming languages. So it's very commonly used in JavaScript. So you say ages dot forEach, and this is actually a very common way to loop over arrays in JavaScript. You use forEach mostly. This is what you'll see in if you go through any codes on GitHub, code repositories on GitHub. This is what you'll see very commonly. So I'm going to say, so you say ages, which is the name of the array, and then you say forEach, and then inside the bracket you specify a function that needs to run for each of the values of ages, right? Each of these values you loop over them, and then forEach automatically loops over all of these values, and then it calls the value calls the function called my function. So let's define this function called my function, right? It's going to accept a value called age, and then it's going to say document.write age is equal, or I'll just say age plus 1, right? So you get again 11, 21, 31 and 41. So it's going So for each automatically goes through each of these values 10, 20, 30, 40, and it calls the function my function for each of these values, and in my function you pass the value of age basically, right, and then which is 10 and then 20, 30, 40, and then it's going to basically output age plus 1, so 11, 21, 31, 41. So I hope that makes sense. So these are the two most important for loops that you'll be using most often in JavaScript, and thanks a lot for watching.